Good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to all of you. And I'm Bhaskar from Dolby. And we have two esteemed guests today for our session, Anandji of Anand-Milind duo. I mean, we are sorry that Milind couldn't join us today. And then we have Victor Dantes from YRF, who started off his career as a recording engineer at Western Outdoors, and now is with YRF since 2003. Anand-Milind, I mean, we don't have to introduce to anybody. I think everybody knows, all your songs, all those fantastic melodies that each one of us hum every day, even today. I mean, so thank you for, coming on the session, and let's get started to discuss about what was your experience with mixing in Atmos. Right, but I mean, when the initial thought came up, did you even kind of imagine in your mind what the end result would be like, or was it a big surprise to you when you heard the final mix?
No, I had imagined, but yet it was a big surprise because it was like sitting in the studio and recording all over again. And especially so many frequencies which I hadn't heard even after recording those songs. I mean, it was not technically possible, so what can I say? Especially the higher frequencies and all. When it came out, it was something, I mean, I couldn't imagine. The clarity is absolutely mind-blowing. And we were in for a big surprise, you're right.
True, I mean, because like you mentioned that in those days you would do a recording of a song with all the musicians together, and the listening experience, what you had in the studio would be so different. I mean, you could hear the entire ensemble of musicians sitting across the studio performing, playing different instruments, from different locations within that space, and that whole effect of that. And when you recorded and mixed it in mono or stereo, most of that experience was lost. But now when you recreate in Dolby Atmos, you kind of go back and hear all that dimension in the mix, right? That's what, and with that clarity.
It is super clarity. The dimension, I would say it's multi-dimensional. And like I said before in one of my interviews, that you feel that you are inside the song, if I may say so.
Yeah.
With everything coming all around you.
You're surrounded by the orchestra and the singer.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes,
I mean, that's really an experience. You have to experience it to feel. And one more thing which I felt was that the listener today, with this technology, he can listen to the song and he can feel the song. He can feel the song, he can feel the nuances, he can feel everything around him. It's not about left and right channel. It's about, sound coming from above you, from behind you, left to right, or whatever you would want to play with. So that's really amazing.
Very true. Great. We'll come back to you about what you think about the experience for the listeners. Maybe you'll talk about that a little. Let me just ask Victor, and for everybody's knowledge on this session today, Victor and his team have mixed over 200 songs already in Atmos, and these are again.
Bhaskar,
oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Wow. I should have said close to 300 songs. Yeah. So, I mean, this all started in the middle of the lockdown and when the pandemic was on. So, I mean, what was your inspiration to kind of remix all your hit songs in Dolby Atmos?
Firstly, is when you presented this new technology, when you came just after the first lockdown, and you came to our studios, where we had to take special permission for you to enter. And when you came with your laptop and you played us some of these Atmos mixes of some of the international stars, I was very kicked. Right. And me and Vijay Dayal and the other engineers, when we heard it, we said like, this is, we couldn't believe that you could achieve this kind of dimensional binaural kind of experience, where you're hearing all the nuances, as Anandji has said. You're hearing everything so well clearly, and you're engulfed in the entire song, the orchestra, the chorus singers, the violin players, and the main singers, and you feel that they're all there with you. You're listening to them sitting in the midst of an auditorium, So
Right.
you and I would say Dolby and you, Bhaskar, have been the complete inspiration. And even though there were difficult times during the first part of the lockdown when we were just getting out of it, you made it an effort to come and explain to us, to train us, because this was something new for us. We were always used to mixing either stereo or 5.1. But this binaural mixing that Dolby introduced was a fantastic thing. So, and as you know, Bhaskar, whatever technology that Dolby has introduced to the industry, both India as well as the international, I've always been, I think, one of the first people to take it on and play with it and apply it and maybe use it, and which I've used it very successfully. And Atmos has really given us. We got so excited that we said, now we are going to. We started, as you may remember, Bhaskar, we started with only 10 songs, and
Right.
we would mix it on headphones, and then come to go to a studio which had the overhead speakers, the whole setup, including the Dolby Studios, and
Yeah.
then we fine-tuned the mix, and only once you and me and the engineers were all satisfied was when the tracks were approved, and the first 10 tracks we put it on the OTT. Then we decided that we will continue doing all the hit songs of Yash Raj, right from Dil To Pagal Hai till War, which was the last film that we had released. So till now we
Right.
have done 272 tracks.
Wow.
Fantastic
and
achievement. I mean,
and just waiting
and you
to
can
do
find
and just
all of
waiting
these are
to
available on iTunes, right? Right now. They're
yes,
all
yes, on Apple Music.
that's absolutely fantastic. And I mean, like the best part is when we were discussing how you could recreate these songs in Atmos. You mentioned that you have multi-track sessions backed up for pretty much all of these. So that was, I think,
Yeah,
the greatest starting point. Because
yes,
now you had the necessary ingredients to actually recreate it in Atmos.
yes,
And like both of you mentioned, so the experience of listening to the Atmos mix is like more intimate. Stereo
yes.
is something we kind of sometimes listen to music as background music, but when you're listening to Atmos song, you feel that it's right there in front of you. It's not really you have a direct connection to what's happening, what you're hearing.
Right, right.
So I think that's absolutely correct. And I mean, like going back to Anandji, I mean, like now that you have already recreated a few songs in Atmos, you have that experience. How do you think conceiving a new song composition in Atmos? How would you approach it differently? I'm sure you would do something differently from when you would initially plan it for a stereo mix.
See, Atmos is essentially beyond the conventional left-right stereo, and there's more space, more depth, and unending possibilities. And listeners can now, as I said, they can feel the music. So when we are composing a new song, we should keep a lot of things in mind, playing around, try to play around with individual elements of the song. Uh, as I just said, it could be left, right, front, center, above the listener, and you can automate so much. So all these possibilities weren't there back then. So the style of thinking about a new composition would definitely change. And one more thing which I always feel is that we whenever we worked, we focused mostly on our compositions, and we've been very fond of technology and sound, but basically we've been concentrating that our work is to create, some wonderful melodies and come out with some. And as far as the technology is concerned, we always depend on or we give our requirement to the recording engineer. And with people like Victor, I think even if I just tell him that I have something like this in mind, he can do wonders. So we definitely like to make use of all this. We can just give him the thought that we have this creatively. Is it possible? How will you do it? And I'm sure, I mean, it's everyday job for Victor, and y'all are absolutely seasoned recording engineers. So that would be wonderful.
Right. So I think a very, very, very valid point that you raised is that, while you want to, use the latest technology to kind of bring out your song mix in a certain way that you have imagined, but you still want that, the soul of your song should be, retained very well. I mean, especially like for your melodies and all, they're like absolutely loved, so much. So I think that is something
And
what.
one more point, we can think creatively, and I think there is now expanded space for more instruments. So we will have to think from that point of view also. See how well you can bring whatever elements you can put into the song. So that's a very important point.
Right. I mean, earlier in a stereo mix, there were so many things trying to fight with each other, trying to be heard. I mean, in that mix,
Yeah.
like you said, that
Yes.
you couldn't hear some of the smaller, interesting instruments that you had used in your composition. For example, some triangles and maybe some retro or something, because of the way, it was a challenge to balance everything into two channels. Now,
Absolutely.
I think Atmos gives you that liberty to, I mean, whatever you have conceived creatively to be heard, equally well. I mean, without, that's, I think, you can feel the depth. You can have two instruments playing right, one behind the other, and you can hear them still, with that clarity. And then
Clarity
also
and
you can
not clashing with each other. No
correct.
frequency is going to clash with anything. So, that
That's
restriction
right.
is gone.
Yes, where there were a lot
Very
of
true.
limitations were there when we were mixing in stereo. Now we have a complete 180-degree imaging where we can move things around and we don't have to bring the levels down. So the element of hearing more of Anandji's music is much better in the Atmos experience, right?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Fantastic. So, coming back to you, Victor, like, how did you find this overall, experience of mixing the tracks one more time? I mean, all over again in Atmos. I mean, was it a very challenging thing when you started? How did you? What was the journey
See,
like?
initially we started with 10 tracks as I mentioned earlier, but the biggest hits of the latest biggest hits of Yashraj, and we had a lot of premix tracks, as in a good number of them, uh, compared to the ones that of the older films. So we knew the
Right.
songs better also, and since they were newer songs, so we would listen to the stereo mix, then pull out the premix tracks, and then start playing with them, and uh, playing with them in such a way that started to do the placement, started EQing them, and when we did the AB, the solo between the mix track and the Atmos mix that we were doing, we found it was a big jump in the betterment of the track. We could hear so much more elements that were not being heard in the stereo mix. So that's what gave us the push and the determination to complete so many of our tracks. And I must
Right.
say
I
that
think.
I must say, Bhaskar, is that the Atmos renderer that Dolby has designed is flawless. I don't find anything that I can say, no, this is not possible. If you have it in your mind, it's all possible. It can be done. It's so well designed, it's so well taken care of in your design stage that everything is there. You just need to think that I need to do this, or let's try and do this. It's possible.
Yeah, actually very true. I agree. I mean, the whole tool has been designed and the whole format also has been, conceived in a way that you do not necessarily have to feel challenged about how to use the tool. It's very, very very intuitive. And the idea is that, you focus on your creative,
Yeah.
decisions rather than, trying to figure out technically what should be done to achieve a particular, experience in that
And
mix. So it's just,
Bhaskar, one thing,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but I feel it's not only, uh, it's more of experimentation with the renderer. It's
okay,
not that, like in stereo, you have a set rule. भाई ये नहीं बढ़ सकता है, ये इतना ही रहेगा, correct? But now there is no set rule for Atmos mixing, music mixing. So you can be creative more in the musical field, and with a little help from Anand-ji, the music directors, and say, let's try this also. So I would say it gives us a lot of freedom to experiment, which is the greatest thing where music is concerned.
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, when you mentioned that, you didn't have to pull down levels, I would
Yes.
put it otherwise. In stereo, you had a limitation that you couldn't push up levels for certain things in the mix because
Yeah.
you had only that much level to play with. Here, you don't have to push up things to a higher level to be heard because at a even like, I mean, you just put it there and, without having to push them up, you're able to hear them so well, so nicely. I think
Right.
that
Right.
that's a big benefit. I mean, you're not really trying to make your mix louder, but you're trying to
Yes.
make it so much more better, with a
Yeah. Just expanded more.
uh, yeah,
And Victor, I think the
Yes.
problem of headroom would be solved to some
Yes.
extent.
Very much. Very true. Yes.
That used to be a very big problem,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
leaving space.
Yes. Yes.
definitely. So okay, I mean, like this is all, partly technical, partly what we feel, but how do you think the listener, you know, what kind of an experience do you think the listener would actually, have, and especially, uh, I mean, coming to the point that, today you can actually experience Atmos uh, over, mobile devices and, obviously on a full Atmos home theater system. But the beauty is that you can even experience that immersive feel, that immersive mix on just a pair of headphones. You're using your mobile devices and tablets. So, I mean, how do you think that experience is for the end user, for the listener, who has been listening to stereo all this while?
So I feel for a normal listener, I'm not calling him even a guy who's an, you know, who knows a lot about music or knows a lot about technology, but who's just a listener. If he listens to a stereo song and if he just crosses over to an Atmos of the same mix, it is I would call it like the difference would be stereo is chalk and Atmos is cheese. So it's a big jump, in the comparison I'm making. I hope I'm not offending anybody, but that is where once they get used to listening to Atmos, nobody will listen to anything in stereo. I cannot mix in stereo anymore, for sure, because I have got so used to the technology when we are mixing in Atmos. I don't want to get away from it and get compiled to two tracks, to stereo. I need that expanse. So there will be a big jump in people, and I've played my mixes to colleagues here, to music directors who have who come used to come here during that time, and they've said this is not what is there in my song. So I said this is Atmos mixing. What we've done is we have pulled out elements that have not been able to be heard in the stereo, which gives me an advantage of pulling it around the room and making it heard, and without making it, as you rightly said, Bhaskar, not making it loud. I don't need to push the levels up.
Yeah. Also, I think, I mean, Anandji would also like to share his thoughts on this, but I would just like to add that a lot of times people think that immersive means like just trying to be gimmicky and just pushing things around, above our head and all that. But it's not necessarily that. I mean, that probably works for, other types of content, but in music, Atmos just helps to create that, expands the wider stage and the depth, so that you hear things so much better. Yeah, I mean, just that's a myth that kind of exists. So I just wanted to highlight that. Anandji, yes, you probably wanted to say something also.
No, these
About
songs,
how you
the ones which, yeah, the songs which we just mixed. No, see, I always feel that music, especially in India, has always been so close to our lives. People have grown up listening to all these songs, so many of our songs or other people's songs. And there are so many memories attached with all these songs. So even today's generation, whether they have heard these songs or no, and even if they have heard it, they can hear it with this technology. It's going to be an amazing new experience for them, which they must have never imagined before. So I think it's a very big jump. Absolutely right.
And Bhaskar,
I
if I
mean,
may add, sorry, Bhaskar,
yeah,
is for the listeners out there who are listening and maybe even who will get this message, I would say it's nothing like not trying out this new format. Is you need a phone which is Atmos, which will have an Atmos kind of an Atmos phone. You need Apple Music, and you just need a good pair of headphones, and you will be able to definitely, for sure, be able to say that yes, there is a big difference between the normal stereo and the binaural experience. That's what I feel.
right. I mean, yes, you're absolutely correct. So the other thing, what I was trying to say something, I just kind of,
Sorry,
but no, not a problem. So, like what Anji was just saying, I mean, so I mean, you said that the people are so used to, in fact, they kind of almost remember by heart all your melodies, compositions. I mean, I remember them. So, but you feel that today, if they listen to this new version, the Atmos version, it'll still be a kind of revelation. It'll be something, still something very, very new for them. It's not the exactly same thing what they remember, right? It'll still be a unique experience.
Yeah, it will be a unique experience. And with the clarity and richness and multi-dimensional sound, it is bound to be a unique experience. I mean, if I may say so, it's a unique experience for me doing the same songs again. Absolutely. So there's no doubt about it.
Fantastic. And I think I mean, we've pretty much discussed, how it is, in terms of, technically mixing the songs. What was the experience like? So Victor just mentioned that, he and his team has already mixed 272 songs, and
that's
we
still
had
at
actually, yeah,
that's still at it.
still at it, and just to testify, like all the numbers that of the number of songs that he has already mixed. So you can see those lovely, plaques on his desk behind. So this is, I mean, just wanted to inform people on this session that, we have a program called the MME program, which is Music Mix Engineers program that we started, to recognize the contribution of mix engineers who are, mixing songs in Atmos, Dolby Atmos. And I think it's a unique program that we started. We didn't have, any similar program which would recognize, the talent of the mix engineers. I mean, we have all kinds of awards, but mix engineers generally remain in the background. And this was a way to just thank their, contribution. And Victor, maybe you want to explain all those 3 plaques that you have received.
Sure. Yeah.
You have
So
done a hat trick.
yes, I think the first one, at least in India. So
Yes.
this plaque is for the first 10 tracks that I mixed in Atmos. Then this one is the silver plaque, which is 50 tracks. And this one is a century, which is 400 tracks. So if you notice that there is a number here which says that all these I've got these plaques were given to me by Dolby in 2021. So we did this achievement was done in less than 3 months, right, Bhaskar?
Yes, absolutely.
So
Great
I
job. I
would
mean, I couldn't believe how you managed to pull it off. But
so,
that leads me to one more thought. Sorry, I'll just finish off this one thing that
yeah, sure.
people interested to try out what Atmos mixing is. Like you said, the people should be willing to experiment. I think all you need is just your mixing DAW and the Atmos renderer, which is available for a 90-day free trial on our website. I can probably post the link in this chat in a while, and a pair of headphones. I mean, that's
Good there.
how you mix most of your tracks. I mean, it's not probably the ideal way, but I mean, you can, because the renderer has this fantastic binaural rendering, which kind of translates your Atmos mix to just 2 channels of the headphone. So it renders that whole 3D immersive experience over the 2 channels in the headphone. And that is how you can get started to mix an Atmos with just that minimal setup. That's the beauty, which you cannot. I mean, if you tried any other format like for 5.1, you could not experience 5.1 film music. That's why it never became popular. And we strongly believe that this is where Atmos goes above other formats in the sense of the experience that they can bring to the end user. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something else, Victor.
Is it me? Yeah. Well, I would like everyone out there, especially the engineers, mix engineers, to get this experience. At least do it, as Bhaskar said, we have a 90-day free license, and where you just need a DAW, and you can maybe just do a kind of experimentation of maybe 10 different songs, or even start with 5, just for you to get an experience of what this really sounds like. That's the point I was trying to make, Bhaskar, is that uh, besides the normal listener who would listen to it on a Samsung phone which has Atmos and has also Apple Music, you can just dial it into a binaural mix and just get that experience. I'm saying try it out, because still what we are saying, you don't have to believe it. You will be convinced only once you put a pair of headphones and hear it on one of the OTT platforms, which will convince you. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And also,
Right.
the MME program that you see here, these plaques, I'm encouraging all the mix engineers to start doing this. I mean, start mixing in Atmos, get the plaques awarded to you by Dolby, which is no big deal, as in just have to fill out an online form, and within a week the plaque comes to you. So it is for us engineers to encourage music directors that we need to mix music, yes, in stereo also, but also in Dolby Atmos. As Anandji just mentioned a while back, it makes a big difference to the way the song is presented, from a stereo mix to an Atmos mix, right, sir?
Absolutely. Now, Victor, one question for you.
Yes, sir.
See, every song is different, every track is different, every
Absolutely.
requirement is different, so you cannot generalize. But
Yes.
how how much time does it take you to mix a normal song in Dolby
Uh,
Atmos?
See, we approach it this way, because we take 3 to 3.5 hours to mix a song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we don't master it that at the end of that day, because first is mixing, then we have a full listening to, because where we check the levels, and then we do a master, right, at postmaster. We come back the next day, we mix, we try and attempt about 3 to 4 songs in a day. That depends again on how each song is different, as you rightly said, because the ears tend to get fatigued if you're listening to music continuously.
Yes.
So we shut down in the evening, come back in the morning the next day, have a listen to all what we've done the previous day in a fresh state of mind, and then we master them. Then we attempt to mix additionally next 2 or 3 songs till we get into fatigue. Because
Lovely.
from my experience, I have not mixed all 272, but I have colleagues from YRF Studio, Vijay Dayal, Abhishek Khandelwal, and Dilip Nair, who have also got plaques like these. So we've all come to, by the end of the day, in the 7th or the 8th hour, you tend to get a little fatigued where your hearing is concerned, because you're listening to it on headphones. And so we just kind of do a shutdown, come back the next day, and then we master.
I think that's a general rule. Even while we are programming songs, we
Hmm.
tend to get fatigued and
Yes,
we
yes.
won't. Yeah, that's understandable.
And Anandji is we don't we don't see the genre of music, as you may know much better than me, is just not only it's in the Hindi film industry, it's got to be in a kawali. So like we've mixed about, I think out of the 272 we have mixed about 4 kawalis.
Wow.
And they sound so much better than a stereo, because there's so many elements that we pulled out and kind of moved them around, and the songs sound so much more better. And some of the music directors who hear it say, "नहीं यार ये नहीं हो सकता, तुम लोग ने कुछ add किया." We say, "No, no, no, we have
Okay.
not done anything. This is the whatever premix tracks were there. We've just made sure that everything is possibly heard."
Lovely.
Yeah. So we should not. The point of I'm trying to make is we should not have any restrictions that only a disco song can be into Atmos. No, even a ballad can go into as an Atmos. It will sound much more better.
Yeah, for that matter, any kind of music. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter
it's
what
music.
it
Yeah.
is. It can be a ghazal, it can be whatever, but
Yes,
that
yes.
experience is different. Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree that, again, this is a myth that, Atmos is something that will work only for a particular genre, particular type of music, or particular type of content, which is not really true. It's whatever you want to listen, with the, and feel more engaged, can be, actually benefited from this format. So it kind of really pulls you inside, like, both of you have mentioned before. So great. I mean, like, it's been a great discussion, great session, speaking to you. And would you like to add anything before we say, bye to the guests?
Just one quick question. I would like to share my experience in mixing songs in Atmos. Anandji, I would like to dedicate this to you because you are a music director. Is we had most of the premix tracks. We had um, all the open tracks, as we call it, premix of the kick and the snare and whatever the hi-hats and all. So we were fooling around, and during the lockdown we had a lot of time, so there was no deadlines, I would call it. It was come and work 6 hours, 8 hours, and we were given the leverage of doing tum lo karo yaar. So what we did, we experimented one day is we put the kick in the bed, in the Atmos bed. We duplicated the kick and put it in the LSRS. Okay. And we brought the level down. We changed the EQ, as in we rolled off the high end, we shaved off the high end, and we delayed it by a few samples. So the kick that sounded was fat, Anandji, you would relate to this definition
Absolutely.
of fat,
Yeah,
where it sounds like it's tough, and it's hitting you here also at the back of your
thump is there. Yes.
Yes, that's the right word to use. So we were just experimenting. As I said, we had a lot of time, and the reason why I'm saying is we delayed it by a few samples is you will not get into any flange or any phase cancellation. Bhaskar, you agree with me on that?
Yes, absolutely.
And the EQ also gave it a different dimension in sonically, and we brought the level down. So this we could achieve with, of course, it's not for every song. We cannot make it a rule. It will be from song to song. We did the same with chorus, where we did the same thing. So it sounded huge, and this the rear chorus reverb and delays were different, and the front, which were in the bed, the reverbs and the what do you call delays were different. So you got a different dimension to the audio. Same thing we did it with strings.
Wow.
But yes, Anandji is, and everyone out there watching, I will not make it, this is the rule that we have to follow. No, it will change from song to song. So you have to experiment. That is my point.
And you can experiment endlessly. I mean, depending on the song. There are so many ideas which may come to your mind while you're mixing a particular song. Okay, let's try this, let's try that. I mean, it is limitless. That's the beauty of it.
And sir, the renderer, the Dolby renderer is so limitless, the design wise, is you have to only think, मुझे ये try करना है, and you can achieve it. It's so beautifully designed.
Beautiful.
And thank you, Dolby. Thank you, Bhaskar, for the lovely design and the lovely toys that you've given us to play with.
Welcome. We are more happy that you are willing to, experiment and you come out with all these song mixes. So it gives us a lot of pleasure.
Yes.
And Anandji, it's unfortunate Milind couldn't join us for this session today. It would have been great to have his views also. But looking forward to some more interesting song mixes from you again. Compositions and mixes.
Yeah,
and all in
we're waiting to come out with some new compositions and keeping Dolby Atmos in mind. So it's really more exciting now. And in the meantime, people can listen to our already popular songs with this technology and enjoy it thoroughly. So it's been a wonderful session today.
Yes, it was really a pleasure to have both of you on the session. I think we had an interesting conversation. The guests would definitely have loved hearing you out. So thank you. Big thanks to both of you. And thank you everybody on the session, whoever joined us. And sorry for the initial delay. And looking forward to some similar, interesting conversations in future. So once again, thanks and bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.